All thoughts and opinions expressed on WRHU's Queerly Informed do not reflect the views of Hofstra University, the Board of Trustees, or Radio Hofstra University. All contrasting thoughts or suggestions can be sent to programming at wrhu.org or to room 127 Herbert Hall, 111 Hofstra University, Hempstead, New York, 11549.
Welcome to the fourth installation of Season 4 of Queerly Informed.
I'm Camryn Bowden.
And I'm Bastion Hamilton.
And we'll have all the latest in international, national, and local LGBTQ news.
The West Virginia legislature targets the queer community in new bills.
An English soccer star is suspended from playing after his use of a homophobic slur.
The United Kingdom inches closer to making anti-LGBTQ plus hate crimes aggravated offenses.
And more.
In queer entertainment, I'm Savaria with more on the new Necessary Foundation, Alan coming in the BAFTAs, and Kesha calling out the White House.
For Gay History, I am Brooklyn Dottin. We have more on the ACT UP Foundation. Stay tuned to find out more.
Thank you for joining us today. Let's get into the headlines. In West Virginia, March 5th was Crossover Day, which is the day when the state Senate decides on the final bills to be sent to the State House before the end of the legislature session in the state. The Senate passed two anti-LGBTQ plus bills, each proposing criminal penalties for adults in public spaces committing certain behaviors around children. The first bill criminalizes adult cabaret in public spaces, which, in the vague language of the bill, could mean criminalizing drag shows due to the inclusion of the phrase male or female impersonators. The other bill would criminalize undressing in a locker room not belonging to one's sex assigned at birth. Executive Director of Fairness West Virginia, Andrew Schneider, said the legislature chose to pass this new bill to attack trans people, when there was another bill on the docket that would have updated the laws on indecent exposure.
So an important thing about Crossover Day in West Virginia is that the state Senate essentially has to choose all of the bills that they want the legislature to pass. And they essentially have one day to determine all of the most important things for West Virginia to sort of focus on. It's a kind of common policy with a lot of state legislatures across the country, this idea of Crossover Day where the state Senate goes out of session or moves into the new legislative session with the state legislature. It's a very interesting thing. But what's most interesting about this is the idea that the state legislature is focusing on anti-LGBTQ plus bills when there are other more important matters on hand for West Virginians. So in the statement that Andrew Schneider sent out for Fairness West Virginia, which is the only LGBTQ plus advocacy group in the entire state of West Virginia, which is its own crazy statistic, he wrote, "The bills that senators passed today are dangerous. Instead of helping the people of McDowell County get clean drinking water, they're planning to arrest drag queens. Instead of stopping our schools from closing, they want to lock up innocent transgender people who use a locker room." So Andrew Schneider brings up two big points here, but there's also the larger point, which is just like the economy and the state of living and standard of living within the state of West Virginia, which is at an all-time low. And they also face a number of other issues that are not LGBTQ plus related, like declining education rates are not because of drag queens. Issues with the ability to just live are not associated with queer people. It's, the overarching issue that comes with being in a country where things are constantly changing based on the federal government. And the state legislature, rather than deciding to focus on those issues, is focusing on random other things that makes no sense.
I think the thing that's interesting about this is that, like we've talked about, the statement excerpt, the bills that senators passed today are dangerous. Instead of helping the people of McDowell County get clean drinking water, they're planning to arrest drag queens. Instead of stopping our schools from closing, they want to lock up innocent transgender people who use a locker room. We look at that and we say that, it's ridiculous that we target these issues and, why would you focus on queer people instead of these real issues that are actually affecting you, when a lot of Republican media draws the correlation that drag people are the reason, queer people are the reason you can't get housing. Queer people are the reason you can't, they will draw ridiculous comparisons and then essentially form the conclusion that it is correlated and it is causated. Like, these things have to be inexplicably linked. And I think that we, from the outside, look at that and we say that that's ridiculous. But I think someone on the inside who has kind of been indoctrinated is a strong word, but an apt word, indoctrinated into this kind of media and this mindset, believes it because that's what they've been conditioned to believe. And they can't break through that inexplicable link that, drag people popped up and all of a sudden I can't get clean drinking water. There's got to be something there. Like they're digging for something to finally support their mindset.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's reminiscent of, or at least a strong aspect of the way propaganda works on the mindset of people who are looking for something to be angry about, right? Because at the end of the day, if you are so convinced that, your party is doing the right, and this is, honestly an aspect that is applicable to both parties in the country, but if you are so convinced that your party is doing the right thing, you will try and find anything to basically be like, okay, well, it's not our fault, it's because of this, West Virginia is an overwhelmingly Republican state. It's a red state that voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump in the past, I think, 3 elections, if I'm not mistaken. And on top of that, it is a legislature that is overwhelmingly run by Republicans. They have a Republican governor. All of their representatives, I think, to the U.S. House and Senate are Republicans. It's a very red state. Why would they want to target, or why would they want to be angry at their own party or at the state, or the party, running the state, when there could be some easily other scapegoated group, which I think is a completely poignant aspect of this entire debate and argument. The English Football Association, or FA, has fined and suspended Jack Fletcher, a Manchester United player, for calling an opposing player a homophobic slur during a game in October of 2025. Although this happened last year, this past week the FA confirmed that Fletcher had called a player, quote, gay boy, before being removed from the game. Fletcher was fined €1,500, approximately $2,000, suspended for 6 games in order to take educational training through the FA. Despite the sanctions, FA officials determined that Fletcher did not intend to be homophobic. On Wednesday, Fletcher apologized in a statement on the United's official website, saying, quote, I am truly sorry for the offensive word that I had used in the heat of the moment. Despite the fact that I had no intention to use the term as a homophobic insult, I completely understand that such language is unacceptable and immediately apologized after the game. I want to be clear that this momentary lapse of character absolutely does not reflect my beliefs or values. The final match of his suspension was held March 6th, so Fletcher is now set to return to playing.
I believe the full quote of what he said was something, because these players had 2 physical altercations earlier in the game, and the opposing player, who I believe's name is still not released, or maybe it was just released, made comments of Fletcher regarding Fletcher's family earlier in the match too, and I believe Fletcher's full quote that he claims to have said, obviously these players aren't mic'd up, but he said, you seem to know a lot about me, are you a gay boy, or something like that. So it was not just like a comment, like it wasn't just like a quick thing off the dome, like he was like, oh, you must be gay because you know a lot about me. Like he was very intentional. Like it wasn't how some people are like, oh, gay has always been an insult, like I don't even think about it as a sexuality. Like no, he definitely went out, like he definitely said it in a context directly regarding sexuality, obviously.
Yeah, honestly, if you even bring up the fact that he said it as like, oh, you know a lot about me, that makes it more homophobic in nature, because you're inherently tying it to a person, right? Like you're saying, I'm going to call you this with the context that I now have that you know a lot about me, and I am a man and you're a man, so you must be gay. Like that is inherently homophobic. So it's so crazy that this ruling body is just like, no, he didn't mean it in a homophobic way, though. He was just saying it to say it. Like, you don't just say things like that. Like people know the meaning behind the word of calling someone a gay boy, or calling someone the F slur or the T slur. Like there is knowledge and understanding behind what that word means. So there's no way that this ruling body is just like, no, he didn't mean it homophobically. When you're calling someone a gay boy, like you are inherently being offensive. You are inherently saying something that is offensive, and you should know the context. Like there is no world where a person shouldn't understand the context that calling someone a gay boy is linked to homophobia.
Yeah,
at the end of the day.
unless they leave that match holding hands, it's definitely in a homophobic way, because it's very clear he was not like, oh, you know a lot about me. Like that was not the context. That's not what happened. Yeah, so I really don't understand how they came to that conclusion. The United Kingdom House of Lords passed an amendment to the Crime and Policing Bill, which will make hate crimes targeting LGBTQ+ and disabled people an aggravated offense. This brings anti-LGBTQ hate crimes in line with racially and religiously aggravated hate crimes, meaning they will carry a higher maximum sentencing penalty. CEO of Stonewall, the UK's largest LGBTQ charity, Simon Blake, said that the passing of the bill, quote, sends a powerful message that LGBTQ+ people deserve equal access to justice, and added, quote, Effective advocacy matters now more than ever. Stonewall and others have campaigned tirelessly for this change. I am proud to see it one step closer to becoming a reality. The amendment is now going to the Commons to consider changes before it becomes law.
I think an interesting consequence that can come from, the U.S. is continually criminalizing queer people and trans people, while the U.K. seems to be boosting the queer community as a whole through these laws, is it could lead to a mass migration of queer people outside of the U.S. We already saw after the most recent election, there was sort of a migration of queer people out of certain states and into certain states, especially just regarding their own safety. I think the next logical step is a full move out of the U.S. into these more safer countries. The U.K., some of the Scandinavian countries I know are very safe places for queer people, like many European places. But I think that's an unintended consequence of the continual hatred of queer people in America, is that eventually we might have to start leaving, which I mean, I hate. The U.S. has been my home for the last 20 years of my life, but I mean, we have to do what we have to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's honestly so crazy to me because I'm currently working on a pretty intensive podcast project for one of my classes here at Hofstra, and one of the people, it's a conversation surrounding the experiences of parents of trans kids and what they are feeling right now in the face of such unprecedented attack from the Trump administration. So honing in more on the trans aspect of it all, but it's applicable to queer people regardless. I think 2 of my 7 interviews, the parents have expressed having go bags packed to be able to go to Canada if they need to, or to be able to leave the country if they need to, because of it sounds so unrealistic. And I think a lot of the time you hear you heard maybe not jokes about people, but you heard people saying oh, I'm going to leave the country if Trump wins in 2016, right? And it was a big thing that I feel like a lot of liberals said was they were I'm going to leave the country if Trump wins, right? But now it's no, this is a realistic thing that's happening to some people. Obviously not maybe all liberals, but a certain demographic. They are considering, I have a bag packed and I can leave this country with my child if I need to on a whim because of how the Trump administration's acting. It's really scary. It's really scary. But also, it's so telling about just how bad it is actually getting. You know what I mean? If people are realistically actually thinking about, I have a plan to have to leave if I need to, what? You know what I mean? Really? When I heard those things in those conversations, I was you're being serious. This is something you are actually planning to have to do if you need to. That is so upsetting and so damaging to a country that's supposed to be for all. It's the melting pot of the world or whatever, but, there's people who might need to jump out of the crock pot or whatever. It's just so upsetting.
Yeah, I think kind of going off that, it's crazy that people are leaving, and it's crazy that people are leaving, but it's also scary for the people who can't, it's a whole other side of, there are so many queer people who are already at a disadvantage because maybe they were kicked out, but it's very it's very scary for those people because they really don't have a way to get to these safer places. Maybe I think they're definitely far in the future, as the U.S. likely gets worse, I'm hopeful there will be programs that can actually support people into getting safer places, because unfortunately the programs kind of trying to make the U.S. better aren't doing the most. Next up, we have our entertainment and history reports with Summer Savaria and Brooklyn Dottin.
Alan Cumming, Bowen Yang, Lena Waithe, and Adam Goldman have joined as founding board members of the Necessary Foundation, a nonprofit created with the goal of supporting LGBTQ+ filmmakers. The Necessary Foundation will annually give $20,000 grants to queer filmmakers early in their career to produce pilots, short films, or proof of concepts, and offering mentorship from established filmmakers such as Mike Drucker, India Moore, and Joanna Fang. Goldman, who serves as the foundation's executive director, stated, quote, "There is, in this moment, enormous political pressure to delete queer people from American media, and that includes young filmmakers who are being shut out of the industry. That pressure is working. Now it's time to push back. BAFTA's host Alan Cumming has issued an apology via Instagram for the controversial events that transpired at the event. On March 2nd, Cumming posted a series of statements in regard to the award show in which disability activist John Davidson shouted the N-word while Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan were on stage. Cummings wrote, quote, "I'm so sorry for all the pain Black people have felt at hearing that word echoed around the world. I'm so sorry the Tourette's community has been reminded of the lack of understanding and tolerance that abounds regarding their condition." Then, attempting to put a positive spin on the event as a learning opportunity, quote, "The only possible good that could come out of this is a reminder that words matter, that rushing to judgment about things of which we are not fully cognizant is folly, that all trauma must be recognized and honored." Artist Kesha has criticized the White House for using her hit song Blow in a TikTok video showing military fighter jets flying through Iranian airspace before exploding an Iranian naval ship. The post was captioned "Lethality." Kesha posted a statement denouncing the use of her song, stating, quote, "I absolutely do not approve of my music being used to promote violence of any kind. Love always trumps hate. Please love yourself and each other in times like this." Closing the statement saying, quote, "Don't let this distract us from the fact that criminal predator Donald Trump appears in the files over 1 million times." The White House communications director responded, mocking Kesha's statement, saying all these, quote, "singers keep falling for this. This just gives us more attention and more view counts to our videos." As of recording, the post is still up on TikTok, yet the audio has been muted. For your queerly informed entertainment break, I'm Summer Savaria.
This week in Queer Past. On March 12th in 1987, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power was formed in New York City. Formed at the Lesbian and Gay Community Services Center, the coalition, also known as ACT UP, is a grassroots political group working to improve the lives of AIDS patients and to end the AIDS pandemic through advocacy work, medical research, and efforts to change legislation. One of the founders, Larry Kramer, also co-founded the Gay Men's Health Crisis, regarded as the oldest AIDS service organization, but resigned from the board of directors in 1983, later speaking of the organization as, quote, "politically impotent." After ACTA made its national debut at the Second March on Washington for Lesbian and Gay Rights in October of 1987, many participants returned to their respective home states and formed chapters in Boston, Los Angeles, Rhode Island, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C., to name a few. The organization soon spread internationally, with one notable example being in Germany, where the famous gay rights activist Rosa von Braunheim co-founded a chapter there. With your queerly informed history lesson, I am Brooklyn Dottin.
Thank you to Summer Savaria and Brooklyn Dottin for those reports. Starting Sunday, March 1st, 2026, Florida's Department of Health is cutting funds for the AIDS Drug Assistance Program, affecting about 16,000 Floridians from accessing their HIV and AIDS medication. AIDS Drug Assistance Program, otherwise known as ADAP, is facing emergency budget cuts, now only serving those making around $62,600 yearly versus its previous qualification of $20,345 yearly. Florida's Department of Health filed this emergency rule on Tuesday, February 24th, due to rising insurance premiums and federal cuts to the Ryan White HIV and AIDS program. With Florida being the second highest U.S. state with rising HIV diagnoses, the budget cuts will cause more than half of Floridians to become ineligible for affordable HIV and AIDS treatment. The AIDS Healthcare Foundation, AHF, argues that these cuts violate Florida's state laws. In turn, the AHF has filed an amended legal motion to attempt to put a halt to the Florida Department of Health's emergency rule. Florida's DOH has been given until March 6th to respond.
This may be kind of common knowledge, but then again, clearly not, given the story. With the budget cuts, the cutting of funding for the AIDS Drug Assistance Program, gay people are not the only ones who could get HIV. It is not, their sexuality has nothing to do with your ability to get HIV and subsequently AIDS. There was a whole epidemic of people with hemophilia in like the 80s and 90s, I believe, who received blood transfusions with blood that was infected with HIV. It was a whole thing back then, and not all, and I doubt that you could say that all of those people were gay. I mean, straight people can get HIV and can very much be affected. Like, again, sexuality and one's ability to get HIV are not correlated. There's no correlation or causation there. Like, there's this whole sentiment, especially during the 80s, during the Reagan administration, that to get HIV and to get AIDS, it is a gay disease, something along those lines. So these budget cuts, like this attitude still prevails, at least to some degree today. So these budget cuts seem to stem a lot from homophobia and the idea that only queer people are able to get HIV and then AIDS.
This is so disappointing because the HIV/AIDS crisis was like not that long ago. And the way that it started to get better was through helping everyone not get it and through like helping prevention. It's not by decreasing these programs. That is so scary and ridiculous because this is just going to make it another health crisis again. Because you're just, especially cutting it down for people in poverty, it's like, have we learned nothing? Like, this is so crazy disappointing because it's literally going back to the policies that made this a massive health issue in the first place.
Yeah, and I mean, on top of that, it looks like the Department of Health was already sued for the changes. We reported on this earlier in the season. I think it was episode 1 or 2, where our health correspondent Zia Tuttle offered some insight into what would happen if it was cut. And now, obviously, it has been cut. And it seems like the Department of Health just continues to double down on these kind of decisions because they were sued already once for the changes, saying that it would violate state law from the AHF again. And then they obviously clearly don't really care if they get sued because at the end of the day, they want to end this, which it's this really precarious, imprecise kind of relationship between the federal government and Florida's Department of Health that provides them the funds, because the Trump administration cut $1.7 billion for HIV and AIDS funding, specifically $525 million to the Ryan White program, and the Department of Health in Florida doesn't seem to want to continue to pay for those programs. I'm assuming they're going to say it was creating some kind of undue burden on their budget, but regardless, both Brooklyn and Bastion raised extremely important points, which is that this was a public health crisis that was affecting not just queer people, but all people. And so it really shows this intersection between queer news, LGBTQ plus issues, and just the general world and what impacts everybody everywhere. Because at the end of the day, HIV and AIDS is something that can be transmitted to anyone, regardless of who you are, regardless of your race, your sexuality, your gender, your anything. Every person on this planet is susceptible to AIDS and HIV, or HIV and AIDS, and refusing to continue to fund these programs to try and prevent it, or at least to try and stop it and assist with it, is just, it's diabolical. It's really disgusting.
Welcome to this week's Trans News Break.
In a now deleted Truth Social post, Donald Trump appeared to say that transgender children may be allowed to receive gender-affirming surgery if the Save America Act is passed.
The Save America Act, according to legal advocates, would result in millions of eligible voters unable to register or re-register to vote, disenfranchising many ahead of the 2026 midterm elections.
At the end of his Truth Social post, he wrote, quote, "No transgender mutilation surgery for children without the express consent of parents." However, there is no mention of gender-affirming care or surgery within the actual text of the Save America Act.
The Supreme Court of the United States struck down a California law that banned schools from implementing forced outing policies, now allowing teachers in the state to out trans students to their parents.
The 2024 Safety Act also protected school faculty from retaliation for offering LGBTQ plus student support and teaching LGBTQ plus inclusive lessons.
The 6-3 decision granted the emergency request to block the Safety Act from being enforced after 2 teachers sued the Escondido Union School District over allegations the act violated their First Amendment rights.
2 transgender Kansans are suing State Attorney General Chris Kobach over a new anti-trans law that requires trans people to turn in their driver's licenses and state IDs that have gender markers not matching their sex assigned at birth.
Attorneys from the ACLU are representing the 2 trans men who are both Kansas residents and work in the government-owned buildings.
The State Senate Bill 244 also requires all trans people to use restrooms and locker rooms that match their sex assigned at birth, with penalties ranging from 6 months in jail and up to $1,000 penalties.
For transgender people in Texas, many expressed worry about voting in primary elections last Tuesday, a concern that stemmed from new laws around voter ID and gender markers.
Ash Hall, a policy and advocacy strategist on queer rights at ACLU Texas, told the Barbed Wire publication, quote, "There's a chance that people are going to face questions from election officials or, in worst-case scenarios, harassment and pushback on whether or not they should be allowed to vote."
The state of Texas in 2024 blocked trans Texans from updating driver's license and state IDs to match their gender identity, with the Attorney General reversing previously issued ID with updated gender markers. The state requires photo identification when going to vote.
In some better news, stemming from that Kansas driver's license news, the ride-sharing app Lyft is offering discounts for trans and non-binary travelers in the state who may be affected by the law.
The company wrote on Threads, quote, "If you live in Kansas and need a way to get around, use code TRANSJOY for 50% off a ride this week. The discount totals to $10 and is applicable until March 9th.
Lyft spokespeople told LGBTQ news outlet The Advocate that the company is doing this to align with its mission, saying, quote, "Our purpose is to serve and connect, which means that we want to help everyone get to the people and places they love."
And in some other news out of the midterm primaries last Tuesday, in the state of North Carolina, those voting in the Democratic primaries chose to vote against 4 anti-trans Democrats.
In the North Carolina House, Republicans are 1 vote shy of a supermajority, but some Democrats have in the past crossed party lines to vote with the Republican Party on LGBTQ+ and immigration issues.
One of the biggest losses was for State Rep Carla Cunningham, who previously said that, quote, "all cultures are not equal," and that immigrants, quote, "must assimilate." Pro-LGBTQ+ Reverend Rodney Sadler beat her on primary night.
Honestly, I want to start with Trump. I mean, what is he doing? Like, this is coming at a time when the Republican Party is overwhelmingly anti-trans, right? On every single thing you could think about trans people doing, they are against it. Trans people driving, Kansas wants to get rid of. Trans people voting, Texas wants to try and restrict. Trans people using the bathroom, West Virginia wants to do. Or the locker room, excuse me. I mean, we just covered 3 of the, like, essentially 8 bullet points of, like, what anti-trans things need to happen in this country that the, Republican Party is really pushing right now, the Trump administration specifically. What is he doing reversing that and going on Truth Social? I mean, you heard in that story, I was honestly moved a little bit to, like, I was baffled. This administration has shown time and time again that it is against the surgical mutilation of transgender children. And I'm putting that in air quotes because the rate of trans children actually receiving surgical care is minuscule, microscopic. It is one of the tiniest rates in the world. Gender-affirming care as a whole, there definitely is a higher percentage of trans kids getting access to, but trans kids do not get surgery. There is not surgical mutilation of trans kids. There are no trans children going into schools and, going in one day with one set of genitals and coming out the next with a different pair of genitals. It's not something that happens because it is unrealistic, and it is again, something else to just rile up a group of people into being against something. You know what I mean? So the Trump administration, or Trump himself, going on Truth Social and saying, no surgical mutilation, but if parents are cool with it, like, we've lost the plot here. You've lost the plot, Mr. President. This is intrinsically against what you and your party is pushing.
Kind of piggybacking off of the Kansas and Texas interfering with trans people's driver's licenses. Lyft offering a discount code. I think that's a very good thing to come out of this. Very good spin from a company. But I must say, as someone who minors in PR, I have to say it's a great PR move to try and say that you are now really down with trans people if you are Lyft. But giving the 50% off discount, I believe we said it was up to only $10 until March 9th. Frankly, I appreciate that you're doing anything at all, but it's frankly not enough. I think this is a very thinly veiled move to try and generate some goodwill and some good press for Lyft. Not that I don't appreciate that they're doing anything at all, but I think if you really want to help trans people, start putting your money where your mouth is, not just to Lyft, but to everybody, every person and corporation. This is not a time for small goodwill gestures. This is the time for broad, big, generated changes in the country.
Thank you for tuning in to Queerly Informed this week here on 88.7 FM, Radio Hofstra University, Spotify, YouTube, and iTunes. Thank you to the entire Queerly Informed team for your work on this week's edition.
Join us back here next week to hear the latest in queer news, as well as commentary from our group of LGBTQ reporters.
As always, if you have any suggestions for stories or content that you'd like to hear, send them our way through email at queerlyinformedwrhu@gmail.com.
Thank you again to our entertainment reporter today, Summer Savaria, and our historian, Brooklyn Dottin, for their work on today's show.
For Queerly Informed, I'm Camryn Bowden.
And I'm Bastion Hamilton.
Thank you for tuning in.